We were talking the other day about what's going on just in the world in general. It seems so chaotic, and I was over some of the stuff that I was listening to, and I've been thinking about. It's like the balance between order and chaos, and like yin and yang, almost from the Eastern traditions. And it seems to me that we are struggling to make order of the chaos. In our conversation, I kind of likened it to. I feel like I'm on this like life raft
Yeah.
of order, like trying to make sense
Yeah.
of the chaos around, and it's almost like that's kind of what life is, right? So you need chaos because you have to confront it, like confront the dragon, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
From those ancient fairy tales and stuff, and but you need it because once you confront that adversity or that chaos, it's done. Like you graduate school, you have that sense of accomplishment for like
Yeah.
5 seconds, and then it's like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
So you need that continuing chaos, but it seems to me that the chaos is starting to overwhelm the sense that people are being able to make of it. And I've noticed that a lot with people our age. You see like higher rates of anxiety, and that seems to me kind of like people get anxious because when they can't make sense of the world around them. And so the more that people aren't able to make sense or make order of the chaos that's around them, the brain starts. I don't know what the specific like mechanisms
Anxiety,
are.
I think, is a really good.
Yeah, like the hormones or whatever that kick off once you can't, like the panic ones that you start to like become anxious when you don't know what's going on in a certain situation. Like people just don't know what to do with life at the moment, because a lot of our institutions that we've known, like the cable news, for example, it used to be like, hey, I'm going to go on the cable news and they're going to tell me what's going on. And now people don't trust them. So we've had to retrain like this institution or this thing that I've trusted for X number of years. Like now I look back on that and I'm like, were they really telling the truth the whole time? And it like warps your worldview.
Yeah.
It's almost the same as like if you're in a long-term relationship and you get cheated on. It's like everything you've known up to that point is now not true. Not that it's not true, so to speak, but like your view on everything that's happened for those however long that relationship was or however long that thing was is now completely changed. I feel like that's kind of where we're at. Everything's starting like everybody's worldview is just being like thrown up in the air and disintegrated into I don't even know.
Yeah, you bring up so many completely awesome topics that and you do, I think, really well. You described we have our age, our millennials mostly, right? Like, have a great anxiety about what's happening in the world, whether it be through coronavirus or it be through institutional corruption or systematic racism. Like all of these things are. Like where this chaos of the world seems to be like engulfing us,
overwhelming,
like just like flooding, and like the waters are getting to the neck, which that's anxious, you know. Like, we've watched Fear Factor enough. I don't know, maybe. Yeah, if we're millennials, we've watched Fear Factor. Let's be honest here. And Joe Rogan is still somehow part of our lives,
in a totally weird way. And now the order side of things, which is crazy.
Okay, I'll just kind of. I took a few notes about. This is the first time in our conversations where we've taken notes. There's almost a paradox, I think, to the order of the world. So in my background, perhaps my expertise in this is because in Christianity is my part. I'm studying to be a Catholic priest. There was an early group of Christians, an early sect of Christians that broke away from, and basically they ended up creating a heresy. It starts really small, but then kind of the divisions grow larger and larger. And they're called the Gnostics, and they had this view of the world that it's kind of like this yin and yang. So they borrowed a lot from the East. Christianity began in the East, and in Palestine, and then many of the Easterners in that area, right? So they adopt that. And so there is some of this inflow of Eastern thought that melds well. And in this particular case with Gnosticism, there's a good God and an evil God.
Mhm.
The Gnostics and the Christian idea, they thought, okay, good. Evil God, that's the God of the Old Testament. Because we saw the flood, we saw God smiting a whole lot of people. Evil God, that's him. Chaos. Versus good God, that's the God of Jesus. Super calm, super sweet.
The one that'll answer your prayers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so these two are constantly fighting each other. And the reality of this is that that's not true. I don't think that's true, and the church is strongly by the 300s really condemned that as an idea. There really only is one God. There really, and if there are these kind of two things that are fighting, there's still philosophically there just has to be something greater than that. It's not a philosophically coherent idea that there be these two things that are facing off in order to because there still must be some first greatest thing which truly we call God. Yeah, but you end up with this. Okay, so yeah, what do we still do with this question about reality? What do we still do with this question about the paradox of chaos and order in our world? And I think it's actually because there's a little bit. Maybe chaos isn't the right word. Maybe that I'm trying to say here, but maybe there's a bit of surprise that we can always find in order. Right, you look at the human person, right, and from the outside, right, great, you got 5 fingers here and 5 fingers there, each side. Okay, great. And you got an eye on each side and an eye on each side, and then you leg on each side, and you whole body symmetrical right down the middle.
Right.
And then you look at the heart and you see, wait, where's the one for the other side? Why is there suddenly this little difference about where there has been this great symmetry? How is there suddenly something different? And I think that's that surprise to us. It's not one of chaos, but it's one actually of the variability in which order can exist. How does that actually tie in with chaos? The reality is that chaos exists in our world. The Christian and the Christian source of this chaos is very simply put departing from the will of God. So when you look back into the scriptural sources, we see Adam and Eve and Satan and the tempter leading them astray and bringing about chaos in the world, and you certainly see that in this creation account. You absolutely totally see it. You see before that event in Genesis, you see Adam and Eve living in harmony with God, walking with Him in the afternoon.
Right.
They're naked, just hanging out with each other, so they have no self-consciousness about themselves. They're in total harmony together, and they're in total harmony with the world because with the rest of creation. Then, okay, there's the apple, there's the fall, there's them saying, yeah, we want to be like God, and there's the deception that the devil has in there, and it's an absolutely fascinating thing if you haven't really kind of dug into what's happening in the story there. But what results is Adam's punishment is that he's going to till the earth and it's going to hurt. Eve's punishment is that childbearing will hurt. Right, so they are then basically opposed to experience chaos with creation. They begin to blame each other, right? God asks, hey Adam, did you eat that apple? And he immediately blames Eve. And it's immediately their relationships with each other are then chaotic.
Right.
And terrible. And they realize they're naked. They realize they have their own anxiety. Oh my gosh, I'm self-conscious about myself. They look in the mirror and they go, I don't like this. And they go in and hide themselves.
Right.
And what they had with God before, they had that union with God, is broken. And they run, and when God, it says he goes into the garden searching for Adam, and he calls to him, and Adam's hiding. So Adam again is away. So there's this chaos that enters into the world, and that chaos that began there, it goes through generation to generation. It just gets passed on.